Another discernment piece I want to drop in here is the orientation to process versus outcome. And so in a lot of our like marketing that we learn is people will buy the result, right? They're going to buy the outcome. So make a clear promise and sell that promise, which I wouldn't say is completely wrong. And can we bring more nuance into the conversation? What else is going on here? Do my people value the results the most, the outcomes the most? Or is there an equal value placed on the process of how the results are achieved, right? Some people will say, like, do anything, be ruthless in the pursuit of your goal. And I don't subscribe to that. Like, yes, I'm all in. There is absolutely no doubt in my mind that I will achieve and manifest and actualize and materialize and ground the visions that I have. And it is just as important to me to be fully present, connected, unconditionally loving, compassionate, resourced, healthy in the process. And so when I'm marketing my spaces, right, I'm sharing that process orientation in equal parts to the results that someone will achieve at the end of our time together. And so ask yourself, if you are a New Earth CEO, where do you want to put the emphasis of focus on how you're talking about your work? There's a there's a ratio that we get to strategically implement to appeal to our people. And I want to bring in an example here of some mentorship spaces, communities that I've been a part of and no longer am, where there's this positioning on this like high vibe network. And in a Facebook group, there's a whole post created of like, this is a high vibe only space. So come in here regulated with your share. And basically, like, you can say this and you can't say that. So that puts a lot of pressure on the people in the space to limit their expression, to filter their experience through the lens of high vibes only, which is creating this unspoken culture of it isn't acceptable to come in here in the messy middle. It isn't acceptable to come in here with fear, with grief, with shame, with rage. We don't talk about that here, right? And so then where do we talk about that? A gap in the conversation that I love to speak to and love to serve in my offers is holding spaces for the identity calibration, for the leadership coherence, and for the emotional and spiritual alchemy that takes place as we're putting offers out into the world. As an alchemist, I know that who I am as an energetic being and the energetic signature of my offers come together and create a unique third thing. And in that process, every part of the equation is evolved and transformed. And so rather than just being like, you go deal with that over there and like come back to us with your very tailored questions of you can speak within these frameworks and you're going to be coached within these frameworks and like stay within these boxes, but feminine business. It's just not for me. And if it's not for you, let's connect. Okay. Again, this is reinforcing the conditioning in education. Like, where was the conversation about emotional capacity, emotional intelligence, and spiritual hygiene in our education system? Oh, right, it doesn't exist because it's actually an indoctrination system that is conditioning children to disconnect from the consciousness of nature, to normalize working 8 hours a day under a fluorescent light and being grouped with people of your own age for so many years in a row, and only talking about specific topics. Another example for you. I used to teach as a special education assistant at a Waldorf school. And my main focus was a student who was on the spectrum, who was also Indigenous, and his home life was very exposing him to a lot of psychological content and relationship dynamics and um very dense, heavy experiences where like yes, he had his occupational therapist. Yes, he did like different like therapies and had spaces and stuff like that. And a lot of times he would come to me and be really angry, like outraged. And so I would just stay in my unconditionally loving center and allow him to be witnessed in that. And he would ask me a lot of questions that might not be quote unquote age appropriate. But my philosophy is if a child is asking me a question, it is my responsibility to answer that question to the best of my ability in a frame that will allow them to have a holistic understanding of the world to flourish in their development at their own pace versus adhering to some rigid timeline that is a framework that someone developed. So when these things would happen, I would get called into meetings with the principal. I would get feedback from other staff members that they were triggered by how the student was talking to me. I would get complaints from parents of information I was exposing their children to, but I was just answering their questions. They were already exposed to it somehow. Um, and the like coaching that I received from administration was when I was met with these um inquiries and these expressions from children was to say, we don't talk about that here. What? Then where are they going to talk about it? Amongst themselves? Right? Like, I am an adult that has emotional capacity to hold space for children to also discharge the like crazy things that are happening in their home life. And if they're coming to me, it means that they trust me and that maybe there isn't another space where they can explore these things or express these things. And so I place more value as a leader, as a facilitator, as a teacher in the relational role and responsibility that I hold beyond the structure of education and child development guidelines.